Hello, Nicole Avery. How are you?
Well, Trevor, and you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Beautiful sunny day in Melbourne town.
Oh, look, you love Melbourne when it's like this. You hate it when it's different.
Thanks for your time. Got a few questions for you today, really regarding the Nicole Avery story and planning with kids, which is your blog. But now you're sort of, your brand is getting bigger and bigger, and you're a major blogger in Australia with and certainly getting known overseas as well. But I'd like to sort of take a bit more of a deeper dive in some of the other elements of your business. But let's start off, I guess, for those who don't know you, what's the back of the envelope Nicole Avery story? What were you doing, say, 10 years ago, and kind of what do can you take us through what you're doing now?
Sure. 10 years ago, I think it probably almost, not far from the day, I would have probably made a decision to step out of the permanent workforce. I'd been back after my first child, had a second child, working in a large corporate in Australia doing some project management, Bachelor of Business background, and decided that I'd stay out for a while. I'm going to have a few more children. So 10 years ago, my life was quite different. 2 kids. Fast forward to where I am now, I have 5 kids and I work from home. I guess planning with kids is no longer just a blog. It's a small business that I run. I started the blog after I had my 4th child, and that was back in 2008. So the blog's been going for nearly 5 years in January, which is quite extraordinary to think about. And in terms of, I guess, blogging, it's like a lifetime almost. 5 years.
They're like each year in blogging and digital terms is like a dog year, like 7 years. So really, you're up to 35 years.
I do feel quite ancient, and I think so much has happened in that space, and the growth of blogging in that space has just been quite extraordinary. So you see new blogs that come on the rise now, and the ability to grow a blog really, really quickly is amazing. With the social media now that you've got. But the difference for me now in 10 years is significant. I probably spend probably a quiet week, 20 hours a week on all my stuff, to the crazy weeks are about 40 hours. Great thing about me, and one of the things that I guess drew me online, is about the flexibility that I have to fit the work in around all the other commitments that I have with family and personal life.
So with blogging, did you sort of know what a blog was when you started? I mean, it's obviously the anchor to your whole platform, but why blogging?
Blogging was never meant to be the online thing that was going to, I guess, provide me an income. I knew that I would, I decided to get online because I'd been out of the paid workforce for about 8 years. My husband was doing MBA. I was really stuck and limited at home for what sort of hours I could get outside the house. But I just felt like I'd had quite a bit of skill drain, and I thought, okay, there's this whole Web 2.0, which is what was called back then. I need to get a bit of skill set here. So I've been reading a couple of blogs. I didn't really, to be honest, get blogging in itself, but thought this is something that I can do. And I was reading, I guess, blogs around planning, blogs around family. Also, in terms of what I did in my personal life, I was sort of always the one that you'd come to my house and someone say, could you email me that recipe? Could you send me that spreadsheet that you're using? Because I have a slight addiction to spreadsheets. So I sort of went, well, I could blog. I've got this stuff that people want, thinking that my friends and family would probably be the only people that actually read my blog. I could actually be a great way to send it and share it with them. So when I started blogging, it was really more about skilling up and learning. I thought then I might then find something online that I could do. But I think, as a lot of bloggers do, about 3 months into it, I just realised I loved it. I really liked the writing. I really liked the feedback that you got, because when I was at home, that was my main source of, I guess, socialness. We just started some kids in school, but you're home a lot on your own. My husband was heavily involved with his study. There's a great source of feedback from what you're doing, and as a parent, sometimes you don't get that. So it was a great way to combine, I guess, a skill set from a workforce I used to have, which was about planning and organisation through some project management, to, I guess, applying it and sharing it to help others.
So you've taken your skills from your vocation, I suppose, and put them in a more of a domestic sense, and now you're passionate about, as you say, spreadsheets and all things organisation.
Absolutely. And that's where I think, that most bloggers come from. It comes from something naturally that I don't ever struggle for ideas. I'm quite lucky in that regard. I've got 5 kids across 5 different age groups. So I never struggle for the content. I sometimes do struggle for time to write about it and get it down.
Yeah.
But which is why I think that I just really thought if I stuck it out for 2 years actually. Didn't put even an ad up for 2 years, which I think is probably quite different a lot of the times now when you see bloggers come on, they come with the premium theme now, they'll come with a ad network, they'll come with a space for ad here. I think it was lucky. I actually had time just to focus on what I wanted to write about, to sort of really enjoy the writing process without any, monetization sort of pressures. And then it sort of seemed it was almost like I'd already built an audience before I started that monetization process and using it, in a way to create an online business.
And I think that's a lot of people, today probably are seeing bloggers that are doing well, but don't realise that they've been doing it for 5 years and they've built the community before they, not before they need it, but before any monetization even enters the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Before it enters the.
In terms of, so you've got the blog. What other channels do you have? What's your if a platform is your aggregated audience, where does your audience sit?
For me, like my audience is very much family-based, sort of mainly predominantly mums, and there's 2 key ways that I contact with them, and how I grab my audience. And one is Facebook,
yep.
And the other is email. So if you look at RSS feeds, for me, I've got about 4,700 odd subscribers, but 70% of those are email, so they're very email-based. And from the survey that I did, a major blog survey back in the end of 2011, pretty much a lot of the readers will sign up and then they never come back to the blog. And I know that because if I've got a giveaway, if I've made a typo or I've left out an ingredient, they all come by email. That's their main source of communication. Other than Facebook, Facebook also is I think I've got nearly 7,000 likes there. That is, they'll often comment on Facebook as opposed to commenting on the blog because that's their native operating system almost.
Yeah.
Then I have my newsletter service via MailChimp, which has got 9,500 email subscribers on it. And again, I'll do like a collation a monthly newsletter is what I'm working on at the moment. And, whenever I send that out, there's a massive burn of traffic to the blog because they are generally email contact. They'll click through when there's something, but they're quite happy to read email format. They're quite happy to have me in their Facebook feed. So that's for me, I sort of got over a few years ago that the whole commenting thing and having a lot of interaction on the blog. My audience is as much as, you'd probably ask them, do you read a blog? And a lot of them would say, no, I don't. Exactly. Yeah. Even when you're having discussions with people about what I do, with other parents and stuff who are my key demographic, you can see the sort of this glaze go over their face in terms of what a blog is and stuff. But they'll and they laugh. Sometimes I say, I was searching for this thing and I got your site. It's like that's like a
your
magic
site.
Your site. It came up. I got your site. It's like, oh, that's that. Well, I'm happy to hear that. That's great. My SEO is working. But they don't. Yeah.
They realise that it's actually a blog.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's interesting too, because I just want to take it back 2 steps though. You did say, so the RSS, you've got RSS either through an RSS feeder or through email, and that's around 4,000. Yep. And then people are signed up for your newsletter, which is not necessarily, they don't get the do you do an aggregated blog every couple of weeks, or how does the newsletter work?
No, the newsletter is a really manual thing. I know some people do push their RSS feed through their their Aweber or their MailChimp newsletter, but I've chosen not to do that. It's almost like the monthly newsletter is actually an add-on, and it's generally a really personalised, intimate conversation. So it's stuff that you won't get on the blog. I do a highlight. I'll do the most popular planning post of the month, and popular one. But there's also individual content on there that you won't get unless you're signed up, and that's, I guess, a way of building that list. Because one of the things that I think everyone knows is that's the list that when I do have a product, because I am into creating products, that's the list that converts best for me. So it's like giving them extra value for taking the time to sign up. It's not just a rehash of what's on the blog. If you signed up to that as well, you're getting stuff. They sort of tend to get the first opportunities. I'm running a bit of a thing at the moment where I do a monthly plan goal review session, and I offered to newsletter subscribers, do you want to involve. I'll coach you along the way. How you're going with your goals. Let's try and get you to get your goals to the end of the year. That's something that I offer to the newsletter subscribers as opposed to what went out of the blog. So it's about a slight differentiation and adding some value, because I know they're the ones who tend to convert the best when it comes to sales.
Yeah, and so it's more premium, or not more premium, but as you say, it's exclusive content they don't necessarily get on the blog.
The willingly handing over their email address to me and trusting me.
Earlier this year, you appeared to shift gears a bit, I think, in terms of planning with kids. Was there an aha moment when you realised it's not just about the blog, but your personal brand more broadly, and what you needed to reframe things to focus on the business as a whole? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, look, there really was. I was lucky enough to get over to Blog World Expo in LA in November last year, and sometimes, I guess, in Australia, blogging it's growing, and there is a great crowd of bloggers, and we've got a couple of good blogging conferences, but it's nothing to the scale which you have overseas. We're still, I guess, it's still quite different in terms of where we're at with that. So I guess being over there and immersing myself for sort of over a week just in blogging and just hearing from some amazing speakers, it really did sort of click that, I'm actually not just a blogger now. I actually do have a business and I have a brand. And I think that was the first time, for some reason, I had that icky feeling about brand. When you're coming from a non-marketing background, I guess, I'd read No Logo by Naomi Klein, and it's like, oh, brand, why would I want a brand? I'm not a brand. But it was really just that it all clicked. Well, actually, no, regardless of whether I think I have a brand or whatever, I absolutely do. And that was, for me, it's like I do have a brand, and I've got a really good brand. I've got a brand that's respected. I need to work out how am I going to position myself further with this brand and actually, work with it. And one of the things that I did was that I looked at my site and I went, it so doesn't reflect the brand that I want. It was just like, oh my goodness, it was lovely for the stage when I was just blogging and I was just growing. But now I wanted to now move from just the blog to extending through some products, to moving into coaching, to moving into consulting. And there was a big mismatch of everything that was going on there. And so one of the first things I did when I came back from LA was to put together a reader survey, and I got over 600 responses, and which was a really good take up. It was just before Christmas, so you're keying into people's very busy time. But I got an amazing amount of information. I got them to, there's a couple of, really great questions that I put on there that I was really, really happy with. And the first one was that I asked them what was their biggest challenge in family life at the moment, which pretty much gave me the content plan for the entire amount of this year. It really tapped into, and there was all stuff that I know and say, but you sort of, it's, is that interesting to everyone else? And then the other thing I did was that one of the last questions I asked them was, I said, describe in 3 words what happens when you think of planning with kids, and which was really what they were thinking of my brand in effect. And and there were some things that surprised me. Words like fun and inspiring and stuff were quite heavily featured. Things that I perhaps hadn't put in there, which gave me, I guess, the license I wanted to do to take on some new things. So this year I've spoken a lot more about, I guess, the personal side of things from a mum about goal setting and planning. So it allowed me to frame that. I asked loads of questions on navigation because my site's navigation was really pretty poor. What did they want? And it allowed me to go into a redesign of the blog, and I deliberately chose to go not to, I guess, a blog designer, a traditional blog designer. I went out to, I guess, a marketing branding agency who helped me with the design and asked me some tough questions about where did I want to position myself and where was I looking to be in the next couple of years, which is something I hadn't got that far with. So, we moved, I guess, I took on, probably where I am now is about halfway to where I want to go, but from the change of what I wanted to see, it needed to be a progression, and I need to, I guess, bring my audience with me. So I'm sort of, I guess, at a midpoint of where I think I'm going, and just, I guess, what I really wanted to do with the current redesign was to really reflect a new brand, I guess, of, organisation for family life. I really notch up the professionalism a little bit with it all, not quite so homemade, get some really good navigation around it, and really make it, I guess, an online resource, not just a blog. So, and I think that is really what more readers do see it as, because they do go to the archives and they've got much better navigation now, and I can see it through the stats, the way that people are working through the system, that when they, my sign-up rate increased, massively, not just because I think of where the sign-up box was, but because the site was so much easier to navigate, and it showed it was, I guess, a solid resource with a lot of data, a lot of content behind it.
For a non-marketing person, you've probably done more in terms of what marketers should be doing than a marketer does. So, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, knowing what your customers or your readers or your audience wants, but, you know, you've actually gone out and got that. And the benefit, as you said, is, you know, obviously time involved in setting that up, but it gives you a direction moving forward that it'll, as you say, it'll probably take you a year or so to get to that direction. It's an ongoing thing, but I like what you said about the content. You've got almost a year's content worth, and it's content you're writing for your audience. So there's some really good lessons there. So obviously that's, you know, you've redesigned the blog, you've changed the content and skewed it more towards the audience. You know, this has obviously had an effect. You know, we've had chats in the past. You've had pretty good growth this year since you've done that, traffic-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the growth, you know, you sort of get to a point where you wonder, is the growth going to plateau? Because, you know, it's, I think just over the last month in itself, I think it's, you know, it's traveling at 6 to 7%. The year in total, I think I'm looking at, well, it's hard because January is super quiet and February is a short month. So if you're looking since March, it's been 35% growth since March. So looking at about 111,000, 115,000 unique visitors a month. So it's, you know, it's clocking through at really good traffic, and it's, you know, that's really consistent. It's just sort of on the upward growth trend, and you know, the conversion rate that I'm getting from people then to subscribing, you know, that's kicking in nicely as well.
Where's a lot of your audience from?
Australia. I've actually have over a 50% Australian audience. Google Analytics, all those stats are from Google Analytics, which, you know, I know from, so I guess my peer group is a pretty high Australian traffic ratio. And I have really sort of worked hard, although I do very much see I have a broad audience, the concepts are broad across international. I guess it's been just a thing for me. I've also grown specifically within that 50% Australia audience. I've got a 50% Melbourne audience, and I do feature a lot of stuff based around in Melbourne and stuff as well. So there has been, I guess, a play for me to do that, because I think it ties in really nicely with, I guess, who buys my products. I think a lot of it is the relationship based, and the Melbourne connection has worked really well. I found that's where my biggest conversion and sales sort of goes. So although it is broad, and I am working on broadening that, that's one of the reasons why I guess the app came about. It's a nice broadener to a new set of people, but it's definitely a very dedicated local audience as well.
So being a very detailed person that you are, so you measure blog traffic. Anything else you sort of analyse?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I find are really important. I guess the first one, for, I guess, managing some time perspective, is I'll look at social referrals in Google Analytics, because, you know, there's so much social media you can hang out on. I just don't have time to be spending loads of time all on them. So I want to make sure my return on investment in terms of what is it bringing back in terms of traffic, and then hopefully, you know, customers and loyal readers is worth it. So I do keep a big eye on that, because the biggest growth at the moment for me is in Pinterest. So you know, I guess I have what I call like a bit of a social media hierarchy, and because sometimes when life and family gets very busy, I have to pretty much just close off the social media, because it's the time suck, it's where the time energy is. I'll often have some scheduled stuff, but if I've got any free time, I need to know, okay, where is my time that I can allocate? So basically for me, as I said before, Facebook is just the home territory of mums, so I need to be there. And what I've found is I've always needed to have a presence on Twitter, because it's far more bloggers and publishers and freelance writing work and that sort of stuff. In terms of my other audience, where do I need to stay connected? It's Pinterest, because I'm finding that's where non-blogger, the take-up of just, you know, like a standard non-blogging folk has actually been really, really high on Pinterest, and it converts much, much better. I think it's about 10%, whereas Twitter's about 2 to 3% to the blog. So, you know, I sort of I'll do Facebook, I'll do a bit of Pinterest. Instagram, virtually nothing, but it's a sort of a nice to have, and sort of still have that connection out there. So on Twitter and Instagram, I'll just keep a little bit on. Yeah. So I'll check social referrals. The other thing that I do spend, it's not so much a lot of time regularly, but I will every month, 2 months, sit down and have a look at what's my popular pages. And the reason why I look at that is because generally a lot of search traffic comes through. So some of my most popular pages are posts that are written sort of, you know, 2, 3, and possibly even 4 years ago. And that combined with looking at the keywords are actually my inspiration for creating the products that I do on the blog, because it's basically showing me that my blog is all aimed about solving problems, and this is showing me which are I guess the major problems that people are looking solutions for, they're likely to pay for. So the couple of products that I have currently that I'm selling on the blog are a sight words activities pack for kids and a Pays with Kids pack. Both of those were based on keyword research and I sort of got to that point of looking at those keywords because a number of pages on the blog were just doing so well with traffic, with me doing no marketing, no social media, no nothing. And those products just sell without me doing any work, without me having to have affiliates, without me having to constantly market them and remind people they're out there. They just sell every day and they work really well. I've got a product which I'm releasing in the middle of October, which is exactly the same. It's based on what's a lot of search traffic come from. And so then I can go back and work on those pages that are really, really popular, that get lots of search traffic, and show them I've got a product that's going to solve that problem. So I guess, yeah, the keywords, the popular pages, my social media referrals, they're the biggest things that I look at, other than just, how is the general traffic trending.
And so that's all the business part that you're starting to wrap around. There's a lot to learn though, isn't there?
Oh, look, it is. And I never looked at any of that stuff first off. All I used to look at was the stats. But there's so much more. Like you can have, and it doesn't actually have to be huge amounts of traffic. Like, the product that I've got for the site words activity kids at the start was actually quite small, but it was really, really consistent. There's a competing product in Australia that would cost parents $80. Mine's $4.95, and it took me a weekend to make. And so it just, people buy it without thinking too much about it. It's those sorts of opportunities come only after you've been around. And I guess, it is about repurposing some content too that you've got there. You don't necessarily have to start all over. If you've got content that's just rating really well, I can put it together. And that's sort of pretty much what I've done with this next product. That's the thing. I've actually tested the product before I put it out there. It's a calendar which is pretty much based on lunchbox ideas using seasonal fruit and veg. And so each month I've been testing on the blog, putting some posts out there, which have been shared fantastically on Facebook, been shared really well on Pinterest to get lots of nice reaction in terms of email feedback to me. So it's already pretty well tested in terms of how it is. The product in itself is what I'd like it to be. It does have a grander version, and this is more, I guess, of a test product version with very limited dollar investment. But I have, I guess, bigger and grander plans for the 2013 or 2014 version that I'd like to do.
2014.
I know, you can't tell that on my planning.
Planning queen.
Exactly.
Just in terms of the blogging community in Australia, so you're one of the elder statespeople in blogging, but you were certainly one of the first to, I guess, have a partnership with a brand or with a company. And the one I'm talking about is the Yoplait yogurt brand, which is one of the big yogurt brands here in Australia. Can you walk us through a little bit? What's the partnership you had there? What was involved from your part, from your end, and what their expectations were?
The Yoplait one was a really good partnership. It did come through an agency I work with, which is Nuffnang. But one of the things that happens when you get pitched a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff doesn't always fit, so you go, no, thank you. But to me, that I was really quite appealed to the Yoplait campaign for a number of reasons. I guess one being it was something that was already really loved and was in the house, so it made it really easy for me to naturally talk about it. The second thing was it was a really well designed campaign that actually I could put together, I guess, some sponsored posts around a product that I currently use. So, I could use multimedia for it as well. And I guess there was a really nice relationship in terms of I cook, I write recipes, it all fitted in really nicely and integrated. The brand itself was really happy for us to, I guess, take our take on how we use the products in our own daily life. So they wanted, I guess, an overall feel for the new brand that they were putting out, and it actually just fitted really nicely. So it was one of those ones, I guess, that my readers also loved all the new recipes that came on board. So it was I guess, when you're looking at doing the sort of linking up the brand, that you really want to make sure that me as a blogger, I can really work with it, and it's got to have my true voice and integrity, which it did. The brand will want to get something out of it, and for the readers as well, they want to be able to get something out of it, and they got great recipes and other insights into family planning and activities. So it was a really nice blend of those three elements.
And that's evergreen content now. It's always online.
Yeah, exactly. And, and that's the thing that I think even Yoplait itself didn't actually realise. I think because like a number of brands, they're new to integrating with bloggers. When I put posts together, and I guess it's something that all bloggers do, I put a lot of thought into, I guess, some of the SEO behind it. So the recipes that I did were all keyword targeted. So that stuff there is in for eternity. And the posts that I've put, not only for the key posts that had their brands in, but the links to the recipes, I've also put those recipes into my menu planner app as well. So it has an integration that's there. There was a video that I put together which is still being seen on YouTube. So it's not for brands, there is a great bonus in that there's a longevity that they can get. And there is, I've got posts that I've done for other campaigns before that still just tick along nicely onto YouTube, via Google search, all sorts of things that you perhaps don't necessarily get if you're just going to, engage in a different way. You just put an ad in a paper, you've actually got this long-term, resonance of with a committed audience.
Plus the credibility of you endorsing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So just tell us, you've mentioned the iPhone app. It's a menu planner.
Yeah, it is.
Can you walk us through what was that like to why an iPhone app, and is it available on Android, and what was the process? Was it easier than you thought to create one?
Yes, and easier and harder in lots of ways. I really wanted to the menu planner app came from, I guess I'd wanted to create an app. I have a menu planner, free one on the blog, which is really, it was built really, really early days, cheap from someone from Elance, and it just wasn't really doing what I wanted. And just, with the way it was going, I really could see that this would fit really lovely onto an app. And so I had looked at a few different options, but just got into the too expensive, I'll shelve that basket. And then, as good fortune would have it, a reader went out on their own into a development company, and they approached me. And it was a really nice match. They had all the technological support, and they really wanted to crack the app market. They wanted to be able to show that their skills as app developers was really high. I had an audience and the ability to market it. So we went on a 50-50 split, that they would do all development. I was responsible for content, so I'm responsible for content and marketing, basically. So all the recipes are mine. I talk about it on the blog. It's listed on my blog, and they take care of all the back-end development. The back-end development, you obviously you want an app to be this big, and then you have to narrow it down because of costs and stuff. And even though they were wanting this to work, they still had other projects and stuff they had to work on. So they were limited with the time that they can do. And so there's a couple of things that the app doesn't do. It just all works off my recipes. And so one thing I did find, it's a 99-cent app, and probably in hindsight I would have valued it higher. I think a couple of things happens when you put something out at 99 cents is that you get a certain market that's very quick to criticise, and very, very, the app market's very, very out there in terms of their criticism and the free flowing and stuff. And with a couple of changes that were happening, I had some problems with my blog design because I had some issues. So the app was sort of sitting in iTunes for a couple of weeks before I released it. And so some people just found it who didn't actually know it was related to the blog, so therefore had a different interpretation of what it was. So it was one of the a lesson learned was just app doesn't tell you when you sort of put it in, and you can say you'd like it at a certain spot to release date, but they'll put it out when they want. So they put it out a couple of weeks advance, which was problematic in that the first few people didn't probably quite get it. There was American, it's more Australian-based things, food in there because just in terms of seasonality and terms of cooking. So that was a bit of a shock, and some of the toughening of the skin to the criticism. But once it was released to the Australian market, I listed on the blog, that all changed around, and the feedback's been brilliant since that point. We haven't gone on to Android, mainly because the Android, the operating systems are so fragmented and so different. It's, you're looking at sort of 5-6 different systems, and it's a bit of a cost thing for us to do it that way. I would like to eventually get it over there onto Android, but it will have the app on the iPhone itself will need to just start to, and it's clicking along. It probably sells about 400 to 500 sales a month. So that puts it into the top 10 consistently for Australian apps in the food and drink section. So it's going along really nicely. Just would need to see it probably turn itself out this year to then worthwhile investing to bring it across to Android.
And if only you were told when it was launching.
Yes, exactly. And yeah,
just a small thing.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for that. That's awesome. I'm happy it's in the iStore now. It's excellent.
Oh, that's good. And just finally, I mean, I guess now you're a brand, you're a growing business, you have multiple revenue streams, as we've heard. There's probably even more because you have got ebooks as well, and you've got a real hard copy book as well through Wiley Publishing. Is there sort of any other elements? I think we've probably captured it all. Why is it important, do you think, to have that diversity rather than just focus on one or two things? Because you're consulting and coaching as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I do blog coaching, and then I've also started doing a bit of consulting into PR who are trying to create blogger outreach programs, which has been really fun. I've quite enjoyed that because brands and PR, it all gets a bit tricky in terms of everyone wants to pay a sponsored post, but there is other ways you can engage bloggers. So doing some of that, but I have felt it's been really important to diversify because I don't want to be solely reliant on, I guess, anybody else necessarily for all of my income. So when I want. And I guess this year as well has been really about setting myself up to have more passive income. So I've got the product coming out in October. I'm probably going to change the time slot just because it'll work better to launch the next product in February at the start of school because it's a kid-related product. And a couple of e-products in the ebook I have, they are really passive. The hard work is in the creation and getting it up there, but then they're very minimum work and they just go on, whether I'm taking holidays or what I'm doing, they go on to this there. The coaching and the consulting work is actually really good for your profile because then that engages me also into other areas of speaking, which is actually a really good arm to have. And those things all, I guess, it's all about reinforcing the brand, reinforcing the content that I produce, reinforcing, I guess, myself as an area of an expert in the areas that I cross. And that way, with doing sponsored posts and advertising, you're very much tied into the retail cycle. If the retail cycle is down, then, the sponsored posts dry out and go away. So it's about, giving myself some I guess, stability across the year in terms of income coming. And at the moment, I'm just trying to, I guess, probably still skew to more advertising sponsored post, but it absolutely is changing. My books and my products, the apps, they're all starting to build up in their revenue source, which then actually once that starts to build up, I can then actually free up some more time to hopefully create more products. So it becomes a bit cyclical and you're not necessarily stuck in, because with blogging, the trap can be is that you're just so caught in got to get fresh posts out there all the time that you can't actually create the products that will create some revenue and to, I guess, to broaden your base and expand your ways of making money. So, I only post 3 to 4 times a week. 3 is my minimum. If I get any more, it's just a bonus, because I find if you're smart about the way you blog and you put a bit of SEO into those posts, they'll absolutely just run the right course, and you're not sort of putting up content and it disappears and all your effort's sort of a bit wasted.
And so on the speaking, have you always been a speaker, or you've just been asked to speak as you get your profile grows? So you're obviously a professional speaker now. Do you have an agent? Where does work come from? What sort of places do you speak at?
No, the work is all coming, it's been done by myself. I probably will look next year to probably move that outside. There's a couple of things I'll look to move that outside next year. Speaking comes from a few different things. I do allocate a certain amount of time across the year to do free stuff. So I still try to keep in touch with, I guess, where I started. So where I started was just in small groups locally, and then it sort of grew from mainly blogging conferences. And now, in September, I went into Kingswood Mallesons, and they got me in to talk about, I guess, home organisation and what they call their jugglers network up at their Sydney office and their Melbourne office. So it's more about the family organisation and how you can make home life easier while still working and doing those sorts of things. And then going in actually and talking to PR and brands about blogging. Got a couple of things lined up for the end of this year in terms of going in and actually just speaking to people, because as much as we all know blogging, we love it and believe in it and can see how it can work and how it can expose your brand to a great, really targeted audience. There is still loads of brands that are not there yet. So what I'm finding is that, yes, there is blog agencies out there that do a lot of that stuff and they're out there pitching themselves. A lot of the brands actually want to talk to the blogger. they want to talk to, okay, so what is it you do? So they want to hear the nitty gritty. So I've done, I guess, a couple of presentations even in terms of this is how I put a post together. This is the thought that goes behind it. This is why we actually ask for the fee that we ask, because this is what you're getting and these are the results. So it just has been a natural evolution and something I would like to do more of. So yeah, next year I probably will look to getting someone in to help me to and put me out there more, because at the moment I'm only just taking on work and it just is really word of mouth. I think that speaking probably, as you'd be aware, it starts off quite word of mouth. Then if you want to do it, step it up a bit more, you need to actually get yourself a wider audience for that.
And be organised.
Definitely, yes.
Well, Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure. Some great stories, great learnings along the way. Really good stuff there. Thank you so much for your time and your generosity of sharing all that information.
Your pleasure. Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks, Nick.